Progress.
Hey everyone, it is 9:01. We are not convening the meeting this morning until 9:15. We will be waiting for board members to join, and we will resume in 14 minutes at 9:15. Good morning, everyone. It is 9:15. I would like to call this October 15th, 2025 GSA meeting to order. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Member Welch. Here. Absent. Presently. Vice Chair Natoli. Here. Chair Wang.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum, and the next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is disclosure of ex parte communication for board members. Nobody has anything?
Nope.
Okay. So we are going to skip item number 5 at the moment, which is approval of meeting minutes. We will wait until we have our full board here. And then we will now go to public forum. That public forum is an opportunity for the public to speak for items that are not on the agenda. It's raised. So we will move on to our informational items. Item 7A is a standing item, which is report on well permit requests in the Santa Monica subbasin.
This is Jill Weinberger with DUDEC, consultant for the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. This item was put on the agenda as a standing item several meetings ago, just to make sure that the board remains informed of any new well development in the basin. And as of the previous meeting, the GSA secretary informed me that she has not been notified of any well permit applications within the Santa Monica subbasin.
With the exception of the geothermal wells in the city of Beverly Hills, which did not fall under the purview of the GSA.
Yeah.
But the system is working when we're notified.
Yeah.
Okay. Comments from board members? Raised. So we will go to 7B, update on coordination with Los Angeles County on well permits and potential basin impacts.
So again, this then ties directly into 7A, where the coordination is still occurring between the GSA and the county. It has not been formalized, but it is a very productive informal relationship that is being maintained, and I don't believe either party feels the need to change the nature of that relationship at this time, because information is being shared, continues to be shared.
That is item 7C, status update on seawater intrusion monitoring.
If you recall, probably about a year ago now, the city of Santa Monica began discussing the opportunity to fill a data gap that was noted in the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, to get a well that is closer to the coast, that is a monitoring well, to identify trends in groundwater quality. And the idea with that well would be that you could monitor chloride concentration closer to the coast. If you saw increasing trends in chloride concentration, that could be an indication of seawater intrusion. sediments, as well as installing nearby monitoring wells. So the directors at the previous meeting asked that we come back with an update on what happened with that coordinating. And tie into these broader surveys that the survey has conducted in the basin. So when we're looking at the depth of the well, to start with, the idea would be to drill on the order of 1,000 feet below land surface. That would be a single borehole, a large borehole, with then individual well casings completed within it. And those individual casings would be set at different depths within the subsurface to identify groundwater conditions at specific depths in the subsurface. That helps identify not only groundwater elevations at depths, but also groundwater quality at those depths. So you can pinpoint with that what kinds of groundwater production may be inducing seawater intrusion if seawater intrusion is observed. That's not to say that it's there, but that you want to have this type of well set up so that you begin to understand the trends that you would observe in any groundwater levels or groundwater quality in the well. This is a classic kind of construction for all USGS monitoring wells. This is pretty standard when they're going to a deep borehole. The idea, as I mentioned before, would be to look at a coastal location that is also located close to the USGS seismic survey line. So this is not a seismic earthquake line. This is where they've imaged the surface to understand what they're seeing in the different geologic packages or sediment layers in the subsurface. And if you drill a well close to one of those survey lines, the information you get from that well then actually helps you understand everything that you've seen along the whole survey line. And so this is a way that if you pinpoint a location near one of those lines, you actually develop a lot of information about a broader section of the subbasin. Used by the survey during the meeting was the potential for sea level rise over time. And we're drilling a well close to the coast, so you don't want to have a well at the coast that is inundated by seawater in 50 years. And so one of the opportunities to investigate good sites will come up at the end of the year when there are some king tides. So that'll give a sense of where water is coming in, what elevation above that the survey would like to locate the well. So that is the next step. Has the potential to delay some of these steps, so we should be aware of that. I believe we met probably 2 weeks before the shutdown, roughly, and at that time, survey was hoping to get out a scope, a draft scope to the city. I don't believe they had a chance to get that done before the shutdown occurred. And obviously there will be a tremendous amount of backlog when they're back up and running. So the timeline that we hope to stick with, because these are long-term projects, is still to be drilling that well within a 2-year time frame, which would lead to sort of a 2.5-year completion date. But depending on the time it takes to get permits, to locate a site, to get through the backlog of work, all of these things, I've extended that as possibly as far out as being a 4-year completion date. It's uncertain, but in that 2 to 3 year time frame is what was discussed at the meeting. So And that's the update. It was a very productive meeting. I think once the survey is back up and running, there's a lot of potential to make some concrete progress with the well location identification and starting the other process that has to happen before they can bring a rig out and actually start putting a hole in the ground.
Black that at 9:21, board member Gonzalez joined us. Are there questions or comments from the board?
We maybe have a general idea of the vicinity of the basin where the
We
monitoring well might go.
We do, and I apologize. I put this slide together later in the process, so I didn't have a chance to reach out to the survey to ask for a map. But yes, they have maps that they can share with us. They know exactly where the seismic lines are, and there are I think there are at least 2 of them that run through the basin that'll help us get.
Right. It's December.
It's December, yeah, the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Impact sort of our GSP reporting implementation, because that is one of the things identified in the GSP. That's something we'll look into installing that monitoring well. It doesn't look like it's going to get completed within the 5-year reporting period. I'm just curious if that has any impacts on that.
I can't speak for DWR, but I believe that, so one of the upcoming items is going to be discuss the periodic evaluation of the GSP, where we actually report progress on implementation. And so to the extent that the discussions have been started, that we're working towards actually locating a well site, going through that process, that is progress. At DWR recognized in the data gap filled by the time the GSP was submitted, and I don't think every data gap has to be filled by the first progress report, but there has to be effort made to start filling those data gaps.
For the board. We have 2 public speakers on this item. The first is Dr. Margot Griswold, followed by Patricia McPherson.
Good morning. I'm not sure you can hear me over the jackhammers.
If you could hold just for a minute, Dr. Griswold, we're having some audio challenges.
Yes, I was going to ask about that. Thanks.
Please. What is that?
Can you,
I'm messaging them, but they're not
Okay.
responding, so I've just messaged.
Okay.
You want me to
Twice.
run and go get him? I'm on it.
I don't know if I'm speaking or not.
Two minutes.
Yeah.
To get it
Or
out.
2 minutes, but I'm not, yeah.
If we use the,
There you go. I can hear you now.
yeah,
Can you?
but that's just the computer microphone, so then they can't hear the board members.
Dr. Griswold, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Now,
Okay, we can
yes,
hear you now.
Does she hear us? Does she hear like?
She can hear us.
Okay.
I
no,
can hear you now, but it's been very intermittent.
it's,
And I wondered if it was just mine or I was trying to, that's why I raised my hand earlier to see. if-
apologies, Dr. Griswold. I think it's just coming through the microphone on my computer, so you can probably hear me pretty well and not anybody else.
Yeah, but even you would drop out completely.
Okay.
Okay. We
So,
apologize that the meetings settings were changed in this room yesterday. So we're sorry that you're having difficulty hearing.
Well, anyway, so my comment on the seawater intrusion well, thank you for getting this going. I think we've been asking for it for several years. So I'm glad to see it's moving forward. I hope there is a USGS at the end of the shutdown. Because I'm hearing a lot from friends who work for USGS that have been zeroed out. Anyway, I look forward to where you're going to put the wells. So I don't know if you can email that out through Lizette where the lines are, the seismic lines that you are considering with USGS.
I would ask that, Mr. Chair, I would ask that at the next board meeting, perhaps that be presented as an informational item. An update to this.
Okay,
We're able to get the information from those, yes.
Dr. Griswold, can you hear? Vice
Yeah.
Chair Foley? Okay.
I only heard the last part of it. I'm sorry, I have, if somebody started jackhammering behind me just as the meeting started too. So I don't know what's.
Dr. Griswold, I'm suggesting that that be presented at our next meeting so that everyone can get the information.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Griswold. We appreciate your patience.
I just want to add to Vice Chairman Foley's request that it was my understanding when our staff and team met with USGS is they don't want to show some information until they're ready. So it's really up to them to decide when that information will be available.
Dr. Griswold, were you able to hear that response? You can unmute yourself if you'd like.
Sorry, I missed some of it. There was something about the information on,
Yeah, I'll just repeat that again. It is my understanding in our staff's conversation with USGS is that they will share that information when they're ready. You know, that was,
oh, when they're ready. Okay,
yeah, it's when they're ready to share that information and not based on what we want.
okay. Well, the sooner the better.
I believe there may be a distinction that we could make between the location of the lines and then the information that is contained in the data that they're still processing. But we can talk to them about that.
I think they have fixed this.
We can hear the participants over the room speaker, but I don't think we're able to connect, or the participants aren't able to hear us through the room microphones.
Okay, so
You wanna go over
this is yours, right? The
Yeah.
one- okay. Settings.
And so, yeah, they're right now they're up here. And the audio settings.
Is it? This is a Zoom meeting, not a.
Yeah.
Oh,
That microphone needs to be,
yeah, I
I
know.
think it's to Sarah Forte speakerphone.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we changed it and just.
But hand or unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted, but you went out completely, so I'm not sure why I'm unmuted.
Go on mute. I can't.
So sorry, Dr. Griswold, can you hear us?
I can hear two people talking, yes, so I can hear you, but it's just that you'll be talking and then there's quite a complete drop of any sound. And then it comes back again. So that's been intermittent through the whole meeting. I mean, I have the agenda and the board packet, so I've been able to follow along. And then there's periods where it's very good and I can hear, and then an important thing comes along and it drops. So I'm not sure what that is about.
Found out they're replacing this entire system because it's been faulty all along. We just were never told. So this entire thing will be brand new. I feel a little gaslighting happening. And then in January, it's gonna be spectacular.
Just in time for our next meeting.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
That's great. We're looking forward to that.
Learning a new system.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
Yeah, Beverly Hills attorney online says they can hear us fine.
Okay, thank you.
So it may be an issue.
And unmute yourself.
Do you want me to unmute myself again?
Now, I can't unmute you, so you need to unmute yourself.
No, that was Dr.
Dr.
Griswold.
Griswold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came up for me, not for Patricia. I'm assuming you're trying to unmute.
I am unmuted. Can
Patricia,
anyone?
she has to
She's
unmute herself. She's unmuted.
Okay,
I am unmuted.
thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Yes, now. Can you hear me?
You.
I don't hear me when I speak to you. Could someone make a signal that you do hear me? All right. Okay.
Yes.
I see a tiny hand raised. Yes, I have the same questions and queries as does Dr. Griswold with regard to this saltwater intrusion. And my concern is also that the whole southern portion of the basin seems to be being left out, including all of the groundwater monitoring wells that are already in place. So that is a concern. It's also a concern, well, I got you, that in the minutes of the meeting, the comments made by the participants are not stated, even generally speaking, as to what we have addressed. And that too is a problem. The public has no way of knowing our concerns, and so it's not showing up. Is there any way that can be remedied and to include our concerns? And this is all going to this monitoring well, but also to the data gaps. But in addition, I had let you know at the last meeting that there was saltwater intrusion through a broken flap gate. It is still broken, and we have saltwater intrusion going into the Bayona wetlands. That is an area that is designed to only have freshwater flow outward, not inward. So we already know that we've got saltwater intrusion coming in, and we know that Bayona is a predominantly freshwater system. We've had drains that have been now permanently sealed, and we have freshwater ponding in those areas, and we have a regrowth of pickleweed. So our GDE issues with the groundwater basin are healing themselves on Bayona, which is why we need focus from this group to pay attention to the southern portion of the basin for the GDE Bayona wetlands. Did you hear that? I'm not hearing any sound from anyone now.
I hear you.
Ay, ay, ay.
Oh, well. We hope they heard you. It was a very good comment.
Thank you. I see that in the chat that's now been opened up. We can hear you. Yes, I've been putting information in the Q&A as well to try and communicate.
Get to all of your questions in the Q&A. So if you want to look at that chat, you can look at the Q&A as well.
Again, this gets back to the minutes of the meeting, and I see that participants are identified.
If we don't have anything further, the next item on our agenda is item 7D, update on GFP implementation task.
Here. Hello, did the chair mute my comments? This is Patricia McPherson again. The rules signed say that.
Past the 2 minutes.
On their end, that they're,
Okay.
whatever issue they're having.
Other down. Okay.
The implementation tasks that came back from the last meeting. This was directed by Director Natoli to provide an update to the board on the various components of GSP implementation that have been undertaken to date. And this is going to tie in. We will go through this as an individual item, but you'll see it'll tie into the next item on the agenda, which is discussing the periodic evaluation, which is a comprehensive review for DWR of the GSP implementation tasks. So we'll start with this item, and then we will move to the next agenda item, and you'll see how they tie together. All GSP implementation requirements. So those are generally around reporting and understanding basin conditions, and then filling data gaps. So this board hears regular updates on what's happening in the basin. We come to the board to talk through the annual report findings. We prepare the annual reports, we submit those to DWR, and we've had letters from DWR stating that the annual reports comply with their regulations. They were received, they comply, and there's no further need to change the annual reports at this time. Requirements here are to ensure that the board and the GSA continue to work towards filling data gaps and addressing the recommended corrective actions that came back when DWR approved the GSP. So pretty much every basin in the state that had an approval from DWR also received recommended corrective actions. This was the first GSP that these GSAs had submitted, so DWR had some comments and thoughts, ways to improve it, and so that's what the recommended corrective actions represent, and we need to be working towards addressing those for the periodic evaluation. That have been undertaken to begin to address the general requirements for implementation. The board, as I said, has requested and received updates on GSP implementation status and tasks. The board has reviewed the governance structure through undertaking revisions to the bylaws to improve governance structure, forming the ad hoc subcommittee, and adopting cost sharing agreements for at least a portion of the administrative costs. More on the filling the data gaps component. To meter groundwater extractions, we are getting reporting from some of the golf courses now on their groundwater extractions that hadn't been done before. So that's a new step. And with the groundwater extraction ordinance in place, that the idea is to then ensure that all groundwater production from the basin is metered through time. It's not going to be an instantaneous process, but we will be filling that data gap as the years progress. Extraction potential because there are a number of different wells that can be permitted by the county. So it's good to know about monitoring wells, and if those go in, then discussions can be had with the entity installing those wells to see whether there can be a data sharing agreement. But a monitoring well is not the same as an extraction well as far as its impact to the basin. Is to address a very specific data gap, but the idea is that it would be the start of a larger project where the survey would like to install additional wells in the subbasin to ensure a broader monitoring network moving forward. Again, this is a longer term project, but let's tackle the coastal well first. and then begin the process of exploring other places in the basin to monitor. An update on the recommended corrective actions. So I believe we brought the recommended corrective actions before the board when we discussed the approval of the GSP, but this is just a reminder of what they are. First one is a clarifying corrective action to provide some additional information for geologic conceptual model. So just making sure that terms are used consistently throughout the document. I think there was a little confusion between two sections where some terms were used differently. So we can clean up that language and make it easier to understand. Just to investigate and identify where seawater intrusion is occurring in the subbasin. And I want to caution, this is DWR's language. We don't actually have any data to say that seawater intrusion is occurring. So I would say that this is where there's a potential for seawater intrusion, and to, as we've discussed a couple of times already, to build out that monitoring network. So DWR is looking for some additional maps and cross sections to, I think, better inform them of what we understand for the basin right now, and then also to build in this monitoring network along the coast to measure salinity, which is the chloride concentrations that we're looking for. Corrective action is to provide additional information on the sustainable management criteria. So they accepted the sustainable management criteria. If we remember, these are the groundwater elevation thresholds that protect against groundwater level declines, loss of groundwater storage, degradation of groundwater quality, protect against seawater intrusion, land subsidence, all of those things. So just some clarifying language needs to be added about the process that was used to identify the 50% loss of pumping as significant and unreasonable, process that was used to also into this a little bit further, to provide criteria to be based on seasonal low groundwater elevations. So, into this a little further is that we have to remember that the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is enacted across the entire state, California, and typically it's agricultural basins that tend to see larger swings in seasonal groundwater elevations than the Santa Monica subbasin does. And so the Santa Monica subbasin, when we did the GSP, we looked at water levels and we really found that there's not a whole lot of seasonality in the groundwater signal. It's just the customer demand. And so I just need to letter, the details of the DWR letter to make sure that they understood what we were saying. This might just be another clarification that needs to be. Story 1 in Part C, how the minimum thresholds are protective of the beneficial uses, just needs to be built out a little bit more in the language. And then an evaluation of the minimum threshold groundwater levels and how they won't interfere with other sustainability indicators. So the first three, the second three are, again, primarily clarifying. So providing additional information on the sustainable management criterion for seawater intrusion. You can see DWR is focused on it, as they should be in a coastal basin. And we're working towards filling in some information to include all beneficial uses and users to evaluate threshold for seawater intrusion based on a chloride concentration isocontour map. Now, the GSP is that chloride concentration has it reached. the GSP felt that it was actually more prudent to base it on groundwater elevations because we have a better control and better understanding of groundwater elevations. Groundwater elevations clearly play a role in whether or not we're going to have an induced seawater intrusion. And so until we have that coastal monitoring well, we actually can't generate very fluoride. And so there may be a discussion with DWR about how to address this recommended corrective action. It is to identify constituents of concern for the subbasin and establish monitoring networks and sustainable management criteria for degradation of groundwater quality. Here again, I think this is probably another item for discussion with DWR because the GSP discusses the constituents of concern, many of which are already being addressed under other water quality programs and other regulatory agencies. And so I think we need to clarify that language in the periodic evaluation and have that discussion with DWR to understand really where this comment came from. I'm not sure I'm clear on what else we need to include to satisfy this comment. And then lastly, to establish sustainable management criteria for land subsidence in the basin. We have begun including land subsidence maps in the annual reports. And so we are working towards addressing that already, and we'll address that in the periodic evaluation. So basically, the corrective actions are being addressed through the work that the board has done to enact the understanding of groundwater production in the basin, to coordinate with other agencies, to coordinate with the USGS on installing monitoring well, or we will begin to address these in the process of preparing the periodic evaluation coming up.
Get to the mediation activities that's ongoing in the basin.
I think this is where we need to understand DWR's comment a little better. We identified constituents of concern that are in fact related to the mitigation efforts, the capture, effort it has undertaken that's overseen by the state or regional board. Of the a number of the concerns that I've seen addressed elsewhere have to do with how groundwater production could move a plume or change the capture capacity. And so that's already being addressed quite clearly in this basin.
Is that simply tying that information into the GSP? Because I think in the GSP, we only mention it, but I don't think we tie in the modeling and the remediation effort that's being tracked in the GSP. Maybe it's just tying that in. I think
that might be, that might be all they're requesting. So, but this is maybe a conversation that could be had with DWR on that.
Okay, thank you.
Is there comments from the board? Raised for item 7D. To item 7E, the first periodic evaluation of the groundwater sustainability plan.
Stolen some of the thunder from this in my initial discussion, but this is thought on what Sigma looks like, and it's this is as simple as I could make it. so we'll see if we could get we'll see if we can get through it. It's a continuous process. The board is receiving updates, work is getting done. And so process, because it's designed to active management framework, there are a number of check-in points that we commit to in managing the basin. So in 2022, GSP was adopted by the board, submitted to DWR. And at that time, as is written in the regulations, that adoption process starts the implementation process. So you didn't have to wait for a DWR approval to start implementing. You submit, you adopt, you submit, and you start implementing right away. So that's what we're showing in blue in this graph or chart. Maybe a year and a half after the GSP was submitted in 2023, DWR approved that GSP. Well, core implementation activities were continued engagement with interested parties and agency coordination, along with the technical components of the hydrogeologic studies, project implementation, monitoring, and reporting. And then when that approval came in, there were additional recommended corrective actions that were added to the list of core activities for GSP implementation. Two buckets overall. There's the GSA governance and outreach component of this, and then there's the technical understanding and investigation component. And that is how the periodic evaluation is structured. So there are two components to the periodic evaluation. One will be technical understanding, the other will be the governance and outreach. And so those are going to feed into the evaluation. On the screen, but there are really three overall reporting requirements. The annual reports, which I think you all are familiar with. We started our first annual report, went into DWR in April of 2022 and the end of March of 2022, and we've submitted an annual report every year after that. That's just a snapshot in time to track progress. What do groundwater conditions look like? Is there any red flag that's popping up that water levels are falling precipitously? Does any action need to be taken at that time? Of reporting is this periodic evaluation, which is actually a much larger evaluation of how implementation is working. So it includes all of the groundwater conditions up to date and an understanding of what's happening in the groundwater basin itself. But it's also a broader look at you know, how it's working. Now, we'll get it done 100%, but it you know, now is the time for it to start making me nervous to make sure that we get it done. And the component of this is a plan amendment. So that is not required, and it does not have to occur on the same timeline as a GSP evaluation, a periodic evaluation. That is a process that's a little bit more similar to the GSP itself, where it goes through the same public process, and it opens up the GSP to significant changes that need to be reviewed with the public. So it's a revised, it's a true revision to the GSP that formalizes changes and decision ultimately as to whether or not to do a plan amendment. Evaluation process, I'll be coming to you with information and we can continue to talk through it. At this time, I don't see a plan amendment being required, but I think that that's, you know, it's early in this stage to know that. So I'll keep coming back with discussion of that. This is maybe what keeps me up at night, is the technical components. When we actually look at the sort of the chapter format of the periodic evaluation, there's obviously an executive summary, then there's a discussion, and this is spelled out in DWR's guidance document for how to prepare these, that there's new information collected, discussion of groundwater conditions relative to those management criteria. That's to make sure that, again, groundwater elevations haven't fallen below the sustainability criteria. There's some management actions, any need to change or update the hydrogeologic conceptual model, and then how those DWR recommended corrective actions are being addressed. At least is there's a discussion of the monitoring networks in the basin. So what's look at the administrative or governance side of the periodic evaluation, there has to be a discussion of any GSA authorities that were adopted, any enforcement actions that were undertaken. Even in coordination with other agencies and other interested parties. So general outreach and engagement, responsibility of the board. Has the board been kept informed of what's going on? And what coordination agreements have been reached or other coordination understanding that's occurred. Making this up, there's an other information category, which is what are the considerations for adjacent basins, and DWR provides the opportunity for the GSA to discuss challenges that weren't addressed elsewhere in the periodic evaluation. So, you know, if something has come up that DWR needs to be aware of, this is the section that you would write that. And then lastly, a summary of any proposed or completed revisions to the plan element, and that would be where you would start to lean towards an amendment. So that's not required, right? That's only if there's going to be a plan amendment. You would summarize that here. Take a look. I won't read all of this, but I mentioned I didn't think the plan amendment was required at this point in time. That's not to say that discussion from this group or other work that's done over the next year would change my mind. That certainly could happen, and we could come back with a different recommendation. But when DWR says when they're amending the plan, it's if there are major changes to the management of the basin through, you can imagine if a project that was being counted on to reach sustainability, if that didn't come to fruition, then you might need to amend the plan to recognize that. If there are wholesale changes to your sustainable management criteria or the goals, that might require amending a plan. Or if there are large changes to the administrative component of the basin. So if you, in some basins, there are multiple GSAs, if those drop out or get added, you have to amend the plan. Or similarly, in basins with multiple GSAs, there can be multiple GSPs. So if a GSP is withdrawn, right, you'd have to figure out how you're going to amend all of the rest of the plans to cover that area. This basin is one GSA, one GSP, so it makes that a little bit simpler. But it is also at the discretion of the board. So if the board determines that for some other reason it is recommended to amend the plan, they can do that. It doesn't have to be for just these reasons. Or I'll say it again, the plan amendment does not have to fall on the same timeline as the periodic evaluation. Periodic evaluation has a firm deadline of January of 2027 to remain in compliance with Sigma. The amendment can happen anytime. It can happen before then or after then. The one catch is that each amendment has to be accompanied by a periodic evaluation. The timeline, at least for this periodic evaluation, it's really starting, if this is the kickoff for it, is to inform the board, kind of introduce the idea of what it is. And then moving forward at each of the meetings, I'll be bringing back individual topics from that periodic evaluation as we move through the process of developing it. So the board remains informed on the development and can, you know, direct development as needed. So the start is just going to be a look at that plan area and basin setting. It's the most fundamental component of the plan. Not a lot has changed, but we need to go in and make sure we've gone through and check all the potential things that could have changed. So we'll bring that back to the board in Q1, our first quarter meeting in 2026. We'll be looking at the projects and the water budget. Third quarter will be the monitoring and sustainable management criteria. And then by this time next year, there will be a draft of the periodic evaluation. So that you have enough time to review it, comment, and then we'll get it back address those comments and we'll have time to submit it to DWR by January of 2027.
On the schedule for the draft report review, can that be made available for review before the Q4 board meeting? So that we have an opportunity to discuss any comments ahead of finalizing it in the January meeting?
Hey,
I mean, maybe stress out a little more.
Yeah, now you just.
let me look at the schedule. I will, yeah, let me,
If you can
yeah.
consider that.
yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Yes. Appreciate the comment.
Public comments, Dr. Margot Griswold, followed by Patricia McPherson. Dr. Griswold. Oh,
Can you hear me? I can't hear you at the moment. Hello? Okay.
Wow.
Okay, you can hear me. I see it in the chat. I'm commenting a few back because I had my hand up and things were going fast, but
agenda item number 7, E.
yes, we're on 7 and probably D.
7E.
Wanted to comment that I believe the southern part of the basin, the Ballona wetlands, so speaking for the wetlands itself, it is not getting a proper examination. We could prepare a more than 2-minute summary. We gave this a year or two ago to Gina Natoli. She brought up our questions in a meeting. The questions were deemed unacceptable at the moment without legal review or something to that effect. And then we never hear anything else. So we feel the representation of the Southern Basin, the public, is not being accomplished. And, you know, while we're happy that there going to be a saltwater intrusion monitoring well near the wetlands, or we would hope very close to the Ballona wetlands, we still feel this is a gap in your plan. And we would like to either discuss in the future how that might be accommodated, to really understand what the groundwater is doing in the Playa Vista area as well as the Ballona wetlands. Because I believe you're thinking about monitoring wells when we talk about the wells in Playa Vista. Those wells are monitoring gas intrusion systems, but they give data on how much groundwater is being pumped out to maintain those systems. So, you know, there's many things that aren't being addressed in the southern area of the basin. Thank you. We'd like to take care of it.
It's Patricia McPherson speaking. Can you hear me? Could you put it in a chat or in the Q&A response that you can hear me, please, before you start my time? We can hear you. Thank you. Okay, I would like to support what Dr. Griswold just had to say. The gas intrusion systems that she was referencing have to do with the Department of Sanitation in Los Angeles, who is not represented with this group. The LA Regional Water Quality Control Board data is available with regard, but that has nothing to do with the groundwater dewatering that is required for the LA Playa Vista gas mitigation systems, which is a great deal. The water board water that is also not being evaluated is the water that is sent out through the main drain, simply thrown out into the ocean after it flows into the freshwater marsh area. So all beneficial users and uses are not being addressed, contrary to what you heard Dudak say. This is not a broad look. We would like to know who your contact is with USGS. The annual reports at DWR, while they provided instructions, those instructions have not been met with regard to the entire lower portion of the basin, which is the Bayona region. None of those instructions have been met, which is a lengthy list of groundwater and surface water evaluations. None of that has been done. You provide for all of your golf courses every single drop, and yet the GDE, which is LA's only wetland area, you are totally avoiding. And let me see what else. Oh, what is the classification of the agreement with the cities? What is the legal classification of your agreements at this point, and has it changed from last year? We would like to have a response from that with regard to that. And again, what constituents of concern, while Dudek did raise the question of what does that mean, we too would like to know what that means. And we would like to see the address of the saltwater intrusion that we know is coming in. I've just told you it's coming in from the Flapgate area. That's a public works situation. Why would Dudak say that there is no saltwater intrusion that is anyone is aware of? These Bayona area is a predominantly freshwater area. Its groundwaters are classified as drinking water and potential drinking water, which this all needs to be actually addressed. Thank you.
Item 7F, update from the Alternative Governance Structures Ad Hoc Subcommittee. If we can,
comments.
I don't have any comments, no hands up on this item. So if there's no other discussion, I'd like to move on. Before we move on to action items, I would like to go back to our consent item, approval of meeting minutes. There's a hand now.
Yeah.
That's on item 7F, right? That they
Yeah,
have raised.
sorry.
Yes.
Hi, this is Patricia McPherson. Again, I have no idea if you can hear me or not. I do not know when you cut me off because there's no timer also. But with regard to the governance structure, again, I am asking, has it been changed from last year? What is the governance structure? What is the legal classification for the agreements between the cities? We would like to have a response to that. Would also like to know who is the contact with USGS, and this is this should not be happening, having such technical difficulties on us not being able to know what time that anyone can or cannot hear us. And the Department of Sanitation does need to be included in all of this because they are responsible for the groundwater dewatering at the Playa Vista site for the gas mitigation systems, and there has been no address of that whatsoever, nor of the water that is being thrown out to sea through the main drain at Biona Wetlands that comes from the water board, which that is not their role.
Dr. Mike, because your comment is not pertaining to item 7F.
And I would like to then move back to the approval of our meeting minutes. This for revisions on
Yes.
Director Singletary,
Yes.
Director Gonzalez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Natoli.
Aye.
Is item number 8, so election of the vice chair.
At the last meeting of every year, the board needs to elect a vice chair. And the vice chair, but regardless, LADWP currently holds the vice chair position. And Chair Wang from the city of Santa Monica is the current chairperson. So according to the bylaws, Chair Wang would rotate off the chairperson role. The representative from LADWP would rotate into that chairperson role, and then at this meeting, the board would rotate and elect the next vice chair. The order of that rotation is on the slide. So the next vice chair would come from the city of Beverly Hills, although there is the option to decline the role in the bylaws.
Sure. So Beverly Hills would respectfully decline.
Somebody else.
I need a motion. I have a motion for Culver City to be the vice chair.
No,
City?
Or I'm sorry.
Sean,
I'll take I'll second that.
So your motion is for the city of Santa Monica to take the vice chair position.
Motion for City of Santa Monica to take the vice chair.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call vote. Board Member Welsh,
Yes.
Board Member Singletary,
Yes.
Board Member Gonzalez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Natoli.
I only because it has to be unanimous.
I can pass to you.
Now, Chair Wang.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Item is solicitation of items to be discussed at the next regular board meeting.
Up there, is there anything that needs to be agendized to be discussed on that?
And it became clear that this GSA had no oversight authority
Okay.
for that
So they
construction
got the
project
information
in
that they.
North Hollywood.
Okay. Thank you. mentioned in the.
We can begin those discussions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Note that we are now using the Zoom platform. The next meeting will be through the Teams platform. So you'll see a new interface when you get on the website, and you'll have to sign up through the Teams platform. So it's a similar process, but we will still have hybrid meetings. So just please be aware of that.